Okay, so welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are talking about Gorpcore. But before I continue, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Fashion Roadman for all your fashion news. So Gorpcore is a term that was coined by Jason Chen in a 2017 piece for The Cut. And Gorpcore was coined to describe a fashion aesthetic that gives the sense that one loves the greater outdoors. Gorp actually stands for Good Old Raisins and Peanuts, which is quite interesting because raisins and peanuts are very quickly accessible energy snacks that people commonly use when they go on expeditions or for trails just for energy. However, this sort of style is not necessarily a new phenomenon. I think it's a very common thing to have a lot of trends and styles that come out of practical clothing and practical wear and utilitarian functions. I think just Gorpcore coined as a term really encapsulates what the aesthetic of this specific thing is, which is why I think it's good to know. Now, at its very core essence, especially when it first started, Gorpcore is about utility. It's about having multiple functions so that you can put different things in your pockets. It's about having maybe Gore-TEX Pro material so that you're protected from the rain and everything is waterproof. It's about clothing durability so that your clothing can last through some of the toughest conditions, but it's also about breathability because as you're trailing or hiking and stuff and burning all this energy, you don't become like a sweat ball. Now, there are many brands that we think of when we talk about Gorpcore. There's brands like Arcteryx, Salomon, Patagonia, and Wonder, and many more. But to explain Gorpcore further, I have Antoine from This Is Antoine, and considering his channel is all about, performance wear, tech wear, utilitarian clothing, I thought he was perfect to add to this video. So could you tell me more about like what Gorpcore is to start with?
Yeah, it was a term I was totally unfamiliar with. Apparently, Gorp stands for Good Old Raisins and Peanuts. So kind of like, when you're out there on the trails, you got your nutrient snacks or whatever. But yeah, so that's kind of where the name came about. People tend to call it like hiker-core and stuff like that as well. I've heard some people call it Patagucci as well, which I think is kind of funny. Yeah, kind of like mix of, outdoor and fashion stuff. But yeah, essentially it's about exactly that. It's about taking those brands or ideas which are typically associated with outdoor gear or culture or hiking, general performance wear, and then to an extent kind of recontextualizing that and wearing it in a more kind of streetwear inspired style, I suppose.
Now, of course, a big limiting factor when it comes to things like Gorpcore is finances. With high performance clothing comes high price points because of all the technology and stuff that goes into the clothing. However, it seems like people are still willing to save up for a long time just to buy these items so they can look like their favorite celebrities. I think Gorpcore is now becoming something that is more so fashion specific rather than for its utility, which I'm kind of on two minds about. But when you have people like Frank Ocean, Slow Tie, Drake wearing it, even Prince William, then of course people are going to see it as something that's fashionable and people are going to want it. Now, despite of course a lot of people buying to some of these brands like Arcteryx because of fashion, I don't think that denies or negates the performance benefits. Because at the end of the day, the reason why I bought this jacket was because I had a Y3 jacket that was supposed to be waterproof, but it was terrible. It used to absorb water. And eventually I just got so frustrated of the jacket, I started looking on the market for better waterproof jackets. And then I eventually came across this Beta LT jacket, which is breathable, it's lightweight, it's easily packable, but it has Gore-Tex. So it like solved all my issues in one. But I can't deny part of the fact why I went for maybe Arcteryx versus other brands that probably have similar features is because there's also that fashion association. So I can get the performance benefits I was looking for at the same time buy an item that is somewhat associated with fashion. And I think for me, that was what pushed me to make the purchase.
I think it's a lot of things. I think, with all kinds of fashion, there's a lot of, I want to have a certain appearance or be associated with a particular thing. Like, there's that kind of stereotype of people wearing like streetwear gear, like dressing up like roadmen or whatever when they're from some like posh school, and you know, like all of this kind of thing, like talking about trapping and like all of that when, you know, they've never been anything anywhere near that lifestyle, but they'll still happily go out in their North Face puffer jackets or whatever. So I guess to an extent, maybe I'm being too cynical, but I'm sure there is an element of that where people are kind of enamored with outdoor culture and this idea of, yeah, getting out there and being adventurous and being out on the trails. So they want to dress in a way that reflects that. And, you know, maybe that is true. Maybe a lot of these people, they do spend their weekends going out and doing all this stuff. So then, hey, I'm just going to wear the same things day to day. Or maybe it's not quite that. And they'd kind of like people to think that, you know, they're very adventurous and all this kind of thing. But really, they're just interested in getting that kind of look. And to do that in the right way, performance and all of these kinds of elements just sort of a part of the overall package. But I guess also, whenever we're talking like performance clothing or performance fashion, stuff like that, I think there's a lot of things where, yeah, maybe they are designed initially for country use out there in the trails, things like that. But a lot of those things apply equally in an urban scenario. Like, you know, there's some Gore-Tex jackets or whatever back there, but like, you know, rain is rain at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Whether you're out there on like a really long hike or whether you're out there like commuting and you've got to like walk through the city for like half an hour or something, a lot of those features are still really useful. And, you know, when we're talking brands like Arcteryx, for example, where a lot of the work that they put in is to do with articulation, how things move with you when you're walking around, you'll still see those benefits, regardless of whether you're, yeah, in the middle of nowhere on a hike or whether you're walking around in the city.
Now, as we all know, sustainability has been a significant talking point in modern fashion. According to a Forbes report in 2019 on consumer spending, Gen Z consumers are more likely to make purchase decisions based on sustainability. And that's very important to note when we talk about Gorpcore, because brands like Patagonia and Arcteryx have a lot of initiatives when it comes to sustainability. Some of the garments have something that they call a lifetime warranty, where if the GORE-TEX malfunctions or it doesn't work like it should, you can take it back to a store and they're going to repair it. You can sell your old Arcteryx pieces and they will buy it, repair it, and then sell it on a second-hand platform for a cheaper price. So they're increasing the circulation of the garments, improving the lifespan, ensuring that it's quality first and then style second, so that these things are actually made to last. They're made to withstand some of the toughest conditions you can ever come across. And they're also very versatile. And I think sustainability should also be matched with versatility, because it's all cool something being made sustainably, but if you can only wear it in certain settings, then it limits how much you can actually use that piece. So I think when it comes to Patagonia and Arcteryx especially, they are very important when the discussion point is sustainability. Also, these brands have also made a lot of pledges in terms of carbon emissions and reducing their carbon emissions. To quote Arcteryx directly, on their website, there's a quote and it reads, "Arcteryx is committing to taking immediate science-based action on climate change. We are publicly setting measurable science-based targets to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and to shift to 100% renewable energy to power our owned operation." And so the result of all of this is really just products that are made potentially to last a lifetime, which of course is a very good thing.
Do you think there's actually that consideration when people are wearing it, or is it just like an aesthetic thing or a hype thing? Do you think people are genuinely thinking, I'm trying to get all the technical benefits of this to help me with my daily life? Just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. I think you'll probably find people at like all possible areas of the spectrum. I think there'll be some people that, yeah, they have no idea what, I don't know, Arcteryx even is, but they've seen Travis Scott wear it and they're like, yeah, that's the brand for me. Like, this is cool now, I'm going to wear it. There's probably people who, yeah, literally will every single weekend, they'll be out there on an 8-hour hike and then they just keep wearing the same jacket day to day, because why not? And there'll be people in the middle, and I'm sure there will be people that would like to kid themselves that they are the kind of people that are genuinely out there all the time when maybe they're not. So yeah, I think there are people at all ends of that spectrum, and I've certainly seen people that, yeah, come into these kinds of outdoor brands and they have literally no idea what they're buying. Yeah, like looking at Depop and places like that, for example, I've seen people sell some absolutely like clapped condition jackets that would like no longer work, basically. But people will still happily like sell them, and people will buy them just because they kind of see the name, whether that be Patagonia, Arcteryx, whatever, and they think like, oh, nice waterproof jacket, like that's going to be the best. I'm going to buy it. They'll pay whatever, not really knowing exactly what it is that they're getting.
Yeah. So when someone says Gorpcore, what type of brands come to mind?
Um, for me, I think Arcteryx is the big one because that's my personal preference. Like that's a brand that I've bought a lot of stuff from. I've been really happy with everything they do. I think they've got a really solid product lineup. Um, but they're maybe not the best brand kind of aesthetically. And I don't mean that in that I don't think the things look good, because I think they do look really good. But I think when people are thinking about Gorpcore or Hikercore, they're looking for a bit of a stronger connection to a slightly more vintage kind of look, whereas a lot of Arcteryx stuff is a little bit more like futuristic in nature. It feels very much like, you know, the 2021 hiker, like wearing the absolute best gear they can, using all this like modern performance enhancements and stuff like that. Whereas you look at there's brands, quite a few Japanese brands like South to West 8 and Wonder. There's some cool brands from like Taiwan and stuff as well. And the names are like escaping me at the moment. There's this brand called Goopy, which is like a very peculiar name, but they take these kinds of looks and colors and stuff that you would associate with hiking gear, and then they make like absolutely enormous silhouettes out of them. So there's kind of that reference to hiking style, but then a real like oversized look, which is more kind of associated with streetwear. So I think to me that those kinds of things are the ones that really capture the essence of this look, where it really does feel like there's a fashion influence there and there's a performance hiking influence there as well. And it's about both of those things kind of put together.
And now there are different types of people that engage in the Gorpcore style. There are people who only go for hikes and don't really care about fashion and buy brands like Salomon shoes for trails and Arcteryx jackets for severe conditions, all the way to people that literally just buy it because they saw Frank Ocean wear it. However, I don't think there's absolutes in anything, and I think everyone exists on that spectrum. I'd say for me, I'm in the middle. I definitely bought this jacket for the performance benefits, but I can't deny that part of the reason I bought it was also because it's considered fashionable. So I'm sort of in between there somewhere. There are some people who really don't even care about the benefits and don't really care about something being breathable and all those type of things, which is fair enough. So they exist more on the fashion spectrum. Then there's people who are like the purists who say that I hate people that only wear Arcteryx for fashion. If you don't hike, you're not a real Arcteryx fan and things like that. But I do think that there's a spectrum, and I don't think it's wrong to exist anywhere on the spectrum. I think what's more important is that Arcteryx does not lose its integrity. I think a reason why Arcteryx is so big and a lot of other Gorpcore considered brands like Patagonia are so big is they have never wavered on their quality. It's always been quality first and everything else second. And I think once you lose that, you lose your integrity. It's like the North Face has gone from being a brand that made some of the highest quality ski wear to now they just make printed t-shirts and things like that. So far as Arcteryx, regardless of who wears it, they don't lose their quality and they don't start to cut corners and try to save costs so they can make higher profits. I think it's completely fine. Now, ultimately, where the balance lies between performance and aesthetic, to me, is for the consumers to decide. Of course, fashion and Gorpcore is now synonymous if we look at the collaboration between the skatewear brand Palace and Arcteryx, or if we look at the Off-White Fall Winter 20 collection when Virgil Abloh sent models on the runway wearing Arcteryx dresses. And of course that met a lot of controversy with a lot of Arcteryx purists up in arms saying that those cuts of jackets will actually affect the waterproofing abilities of the jacket. And a representative from Arcteryx actually had to come out and give a statement saying that they did not officially approve a collaboration with Off-White and it wasn't to be sold. Personally, I think it's nice to wear, it performs really well, and at the end of the day, in a sustainably focused fashion climate that we're in, surely it can only be a good thing that people are now buying into clothing made to last, made for specific functions. It's waterproof, it's breathable, it's very versatile essentially. But on that note, let me know what your thoughts are on Gorpcore down below. Let me know your different favorite brands that are synonymous with the Gorpcore style. And as always, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so via the Patreon, which will be in the description below. And stay tuned for another video.